Chairman, I want to speak specifically and directly to the amendment in the nature of the substitute offered by Mr. Poe from Texas as it relates to H.R. 4744 and the capacity in which it outlines offenses against human rights and basic decency by the Iranian regime. And specifically point out that in, I believe, HJR 188 earlier passed this year, this body had the willingness to tell the truth as it relates to who the victims primarily, but not exclusively, were of the atrocities that occurred in Iran in and around 1988. And that is to point out the reality that the bulk of the victims of those offenses were affiliated with the MEK. And now there's pushback essentially on telling the truth from somewhere, perhaps on staff or externally, I don't know. But it's a dark damn day, sir, when this committee's not willing to tell the truth to the world. Now, let me be clear, Mr. Chairman, and again, my tone reflects no animosity towards any individual, but the idea that the Foreign Affairs Committee of the House of Representatives of the United States would be afraid to acknowledge a reality because it might not be politically expedient as to who the victims of the atrocities committed by this horrific Iranian regime are and were. In my opinion, which I try to make clear as frequently and as loudly as I possibly can, is that just about any alternative on the ground as it relates to the governance of the nation of Iran is preferable to the status quo. But I don't have a preference as it relates to the MEK or their rival parties. I don't. So I'm not sitting here trying to curry favor with these amazing, brave people who show up in these yellow coats. I'm sitting here saying that it's an existential threat not only to the life of individuals who might have the temerity to protest conditions in Iran, but to the region and ultimately, if the JCPOA works out the way I think it will, to the world, to stand by and acknowledge this Iranian regime's malfeasance, but not all of it, but not the scope of it, but not with specificity. And so, I mean no ill will towards any in particular person, but we know what happened. It took us 10 years to figure it out in 1988 in Iran. We know who the victims were, and we should address that with specificity because we're the House of Representatives of the United States of America, and if we're not willing to look the world in the eyes and tell them the truth, God knows who will. And so I don't know how much more vehement I could be in support of Mr. Poe's amendment. And this isn't about picking sides except for to say that the mullahs in Iran are dangerous to the world. And so I hope that members of this committee on both sides of the aisle will join me in acknowledging the total truth as it relates to the reality of what occurred in Iran these many years ago, because it's important that somebody in the world be willing to do what's right and not be afraid by political considerations. And it ought to be us. Thank you.